Hello, everyone. I'm Casey Ferran McGee, and you're listening to the official Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office podcast with Sheriff Susan Hutson. And today we are joined by Dr. Corey Hebert, one of the nation's leading medical professionals, to discuss mental health in our community. Together with Sheriff Hutson, we'll be exploring the urgent need for better resources to address what the sheriff identifies as the root causes of crime and how we can invest in a safer future for New Orleans. So thank you, Dr. Hebert, for being here with
Thank
us.
you. I'm glad to be here.
Glad to have you, Doc.
I know this
This,
is an important discussion for you.
yeah, this is why I ran for sheriff. This particular subject, the wanting to impact mental health and how we deal with it, and we know that the jail is not the way to deal with it.
It is not.
And just recently we had the Bourbon Street attack, and we can't start this without at least addressing that and acknowledging what that has done to this community. We're all struggling with a little bit of fear and anxiety, I think, right now.
Sure.
How do we begin at this point to just start the healing process as a community, and what role do you think mental health services will play in that?
Well, what I will say is something that is going to be at the core of how we move on. If people were generally evil, then this would happen every day, all day. But it doesn't, because people are inherently good. They're inherently good. So if we start with that mentality that people are inherently good, then sure there'll be a few people that are quote unquote evil. There sure is going to be some societal issues and pressures that'll make people do certain things that they wouldn't normally do. But by and large, people are good. And when we start thinking about this as the first time this has ever happened exactly like this in this city with all of the stuff that we do, we have to always remember that this is the outlier. So you have to realize that your day should go on exactly the way it was going to go on, because that is something that probably won't happen again for your lifetime.
Yeah. And Sheriff, I know one of the first questions reporters will ask after these incidents is, how did you feel in the moment? That was a day that, the day before we were all celebrating, ready for a hopeful new year and a good start to a new year. And then this, I think we all just kind of woke up feeling that.
Absolutely, and I wasn't able to really articulate what I was feeling, except there's something going on inside, and I guess that's anxiety, a little bit of, just hypervigilance as well, just an unsettled feeling. I said discombobulated. I didn't really. I'm not a doctor. I didn't know what
Yeah.
to
Oh
say,
no,
but
that's a good word.
I
That's a good
just
word.
feel off. And so everywhere we went, first of all, I had to go check on my team. I had to be active. I had to do something. And that's why I really wanted to restart this podcast and start talking about this issue. We've got to do something. We can't just deal with this issue and be resilient. No, we got to have real solutions in place. But everywhere I went, just went to check on our team. When I woke up that morning and found out we had people in the quarter, I didn't know if they were safe. I didn't know if I was going to have to talk to their family members later that day. It was very emotional. And so, first thing we did was check on everybody, make sure they're safe. Second thing I did was make sure they could get some sleep, and then make sure they knew they were going to go see somebody. Not as a punishment. This is love and support. This is how you take care of your team. And they were all good with that, because they're like, Sheriff, we're tough. I'm like, I know you are, but this is my way of showing you that I care. So, and they were all glad to go do it. So, and EMS did it. They had somebody on staff doing it. And in the debrief the very next day, every single agency talked about wanting to do that for their team, wanting to take care of their team. So we know that they saw horrible things that night, terrible things. And so we just have to deal with that. And as the leaders, we have to prioritize mental health.
We do. And the thing is that no one is immune, because there's not one person in this city that has not either celebrated something in the French Quarter, went down there and had a great time. So basically what this was like is somebody breaking into your home.
Yeah.
You felt sucker punch, like somebody broke into your house. And so you kind of felt like you're safe no place. And that's the problem. We have to recognize that those things happen. And I'm a very big proponent of therapy. I think everybody should have therapy, because that's the only place where you can tell somebody everything. Everybody that's listening to this right now has a secret that they have not told their spouse, and they ain't gonna never tell them,
Yeah.
because judgment or whatever, right? You have a secret that you have never told your mother or your father. But in therapy, you can finally unload that. And that's why people that work in high stress jobs, like these jobs that are here, they have to have that as a part of what they do all the time. They have to have that.
And I think in these high stress jobs and in these jobs where you're supposed to be tough and have this armor, there's also this like caveat of like, I can't be soft. I can't
Sure.
take off that armor, but you have to in these moments.
You do, but every single person I talked to, they were like, "Yeah, I'm all right." And then I was like, "This is a lot." They're like, "Yeah, it was right. Yes, I do. It is resonating." They wouldn't just come out and say, "Yeah, I'm not all right." But a couple did.
Yeah.
A couple did do that, but others were like, "Just you could just it did affect me, right?" So we know that. I mean, they're just people, and so as leaders, we have to say you've got to prioritize these things and make sure you've got these resources there, and sometimes you got to make them go.
That's right. It's akin to, like I worked in the ER for many years, and as soon as you get in a car accident
Yeah.
and you get hit from the back, your body's gonna release morphine like endogenous morphine that you're not gonna feel the pain yet because it's a protection mechanism so that it's ingrained in DNA so that when we were in the wilderness and a bear grabbed your leg, you pull your leg away, morphine's flowing through your body so you can get away.
Yeah.
Right? Just like people get shot. They don't realize they were shot. They're like, oh my God, I got shot. Because as soon as that happened, your body protects itself. So when you get in a car accident, you go to ER, oh, I feel good. The next day, you're sore as all hell, right? And that's because that's wearing off and your reality is coming. That's what's going to happen with this incident here. Some people felt, oh, it's fine. But when you about to drive back down to that French Quarter for the first time, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel it. And you may not really feel it. And I'm glad people are watching so they'll understand that when you feel that, you need to welcome it and do something about it. Don't say it's no big deal because it is a big deal because you're not going to go out there and start doing anything that's unsavory. But what you will do is be a little bit, snippy with your children that night or with your coworker because you're just a little bit on edge. And where did that come from? It's 6 months later because what we're having right now is we got the Sugar Bowl. We had Christmas, then we had New Year's, then we got Sugar Bowl, then we got Mardi Gras, then we got Super Bowl, Mardi Gras. You're not gonna, Jasmine, you're not gonna come down in this city for months. And then when you finally do, it'll be there for you to remember, and that's not gonna be a good thing.
So that's why the care can't be a right now response. It needs to be an ongoing response.
It is ongoing.
Which I think is so important about why you have prioritized mental health for your staff and the deputies here because their trauma that they deal with on a day-to-day basis, living almost inside this jail with the residents we care for, they are needing to prioritize mental health.
It's a different world. Being in that jail 12 hours a day. It's similar to the streets, but not. It's more intensified, or condensed. And so we know that I went to a conference and they said that those who work in corrections on average have a lifespan of 10 years or more or less.
Oh my
than
gosh.
people who don't work in corrections. That hit me like right here.
Yeah.
And so I was like, wow, because they serve too. They're serving time too in there. So when I heard that, I was like, oh no. But we also know that jail's full of folks with mental health diagnosis, trauma, and addictions. And those are lifelong issues that have to be dealt with. And so it's not just, they're not going to be here for a couple hours and everything's going to be fine. We have to have solutions for when they get out. And just like I had a brother who came home from the Navy that we had to deal with, he came home PTSD and eventually got diagnosed. It took our whole family to manage this one adult because they have rights and they're mobile. They can do a lot of things. And so
they don't have insight.
They don't have insight
into their own thing. That's the thing that's very important too. They don't know.
Yeah. And families sometimes give up because they don't have the resources. I want to have resources in this community. And I think this conversation is so good right now. I'm a sheriff. My job is to keep them safe and some reentry work here. But I feel, and I've heard this community say over and over again, Governor Jindal removed all of the mental health facilities.
Yes, he
We can
did.
get people stable, and stabilization is so key. And Doc, I'm talking out my head here because this is not my expertise, but this is what I lived with my family member. Can you just talk more about the need for some stabilization?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've done a lot of research into corrections, especially in this city. I would venture to say that 95% of people incarcerated in this city have either addiction, which can be mental health, or trauma that cause hypervigilance, that cause so many other traumatic things in their lives. And that is almost everyone. And so when you look at the population in New Orleans who is unhoused, right? You look at all these things. All this is mental health. You look at the New Orleans juvenile justice. I would say 60-70% are undiagnosed ADHD and oppositional defiant. But you look at the very highfalutin high schools in New Orleans. They're 30-40% of their graduating class might be ADHD as well, but they're going on to be lawyers and doctors. But then our parents, their children are incarcerated, because we don't have the knowledge, we don't have the exposure, we don't have the resources. So how do you get that? And this has everything to do with allocation of funds. It's allocation of funds. If you do not make this a priority, the priority will be made for you. And that's what happens when we start looking at, right now, and before this horrible thing happened in the French Quarter, our governor is like, there needs to be 50,000 cardiologists here 24/7 at these conventions. They need to be have so many conventions here, but conventions were turning away because they felt unsafe. That New Orleans was unsafe. Go down in the French Quarter was unsafe. So it is an economic driver. That French Quarter in this city is economic driver for this state. So you're gonna feel it one way or the other. You're gonna lose the revenue because of the crime, or you're going to put the money in the front end and then get the revenue on the back end, which is better for everyone.
Yeah.
It's better for everyone.
And the care, although it's expensive, medical and mental health care are expensive. You're paying for that over here anyways.
Yeah.
And it's more expensive once it gets here. So once and you said something that's so key. The unhoused population cycles in and out of this jail.
That's right.
And sometimes when we let them out, they'll go commit a crime in our parking lot to get back in. And so one of the things we're prioritizing now is clinical programs we've got and trying to work with our community to get them into homes. We're trying to do faith-based because we feel like that's, love your fellow man type thing. But we need homes for them, treatment, and to help them get back to their families, because being in jail alienates them. But also the their mental health diagnosis can also distance them from their families.
Absolutely.
And we're trying to help kind of build that back. And then you bring it into, you talked about the children who are raising themselves and or their siblings. They don't have, when they talk about they're the breadwinner or they're trying to make sure their brothers or sisters eat, that's a whole nother level.
And it's real. And it's real. And so because you might walk down the street and see people with, dressed nicely or with their little cell phones, you're like, well, wait a minute now. These people are living in poverty. They must be doing okay because they look okay. We in New Orleans tend to do that. We are going to look okay. We're going to make sure that our children get those little high top blue shoes you buy at Canal Street so they can walk, the little walkers. We're going to do all that stuff. However, we've got to remember that this is mostly a facade about the things that are happening in homes. I see a lot of young people, and when you ask them, what are your plans? I ask every patient, what are your plans? They don't have any plans. They don't. I mean, I'm talking senior in high school. They don't even know that this is a possibility now. And then I'll go so far as to say, they'll say, I want to be a medical office assistant. Okay, well, that's great. So you like healthcare? You like that? Well, yes, I do. Okay, well, why don't you want to be a doctor? I don't know. Because they just don't, they never met a doctor besides me. They don't understand this whole thing. So when you have that whole concept as a young child that there's only so far you can go, that also breeds hypervigilance when it comes to the trauma from your parents either drinking too much, smoking weed all day, or your mother being beat by your father, or vice versa, or just the whole concept of violence, being surrounded by violence. Then That's what you know. You don't know anything else. The only person you've ever met that graduated from college is your teacher, and she usually is not the color of you. So just think about that. I mean, I throw this out there. How many people had a black teacher growing up? I never had a black teacher growing up. I had one substitute black teacher, and her name was Miss White, and that's a true story. All right. So how many people had a black male teacher? It's almost nobody. So in this city, granted, this is not an all black city, but what I will say is that it is a majority black city. So these are the issues we have to get into these people, to our young people early. But because by the time they get here, you're undoing stuff. You can spend a lot of money, you build a new house, or you can try to remodel your house, and it costs a lot more money and it's a lot more headache. So to try to do it at the beginning is the better way.
Yeah, really, really well said. We want to education. Like even as an educated, I have 2 degrees. I don't know some things. We want to impact this year domestic violence and human trafficking. We know that a lot of the women who are in this facility get in here through these methods. They are victims or survivors of domestic violence and sometimes human trafficking. They don't even know that this is not the way things are supposed to go. People will be surprised to know that women who are being trafficked do not know they're being trafficked. They don't know it. And those who are in domestic violence situations don't know that's not the way love's supposed to be.
That's all I know.
They don't know. We're now putting together a plan with our partners in this community to go to the schools. And I said, well, do we go to high schools? They said, no, you got to go to junior high. I was like shocked by that. So that's not just to get those who are going to be survivors, that's to get those who are going to be perpetrators because they're growing up in these situations too. So the more we educate, the better. And I want folks to know we're not saying people aren't going to be held accountable. This jail is full. People are being held accountable. But when are we going to get smart about crime and start doing things that will help impact it so we have less survivors and less victims? When are we going to do that?
Yeah. I just wonder, it's almost like your job is kind of like my job in a way that, you should try to make this place empty.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
As a doctor, I want there to be no one in the hospital. You see what I'm saying? But it's not that way. So for the people that end up in the hospital, I have to give the best care. And for the people that end up here, you have to give the best care. And that's when you are implementing those things, you are giving the best care. Because when you get back out there, your brain has to be balanced enough to where you can go back into the exact same situation that made you do what you did and not do it.
Do something else.
Bruh.
That's not.
You know how hard that is?
That's hard.
I mean, that's look. Just try to give up a vice and then go back to the place where they're vicing.
Yeah.
That's not people that's incarcerated. That's anything.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? So that is you have to make someone stronger when they leave than when they came.
That's right.
And that's hard. But that's what you are tasked with, and that's what I will help you, and our city should help you, our state should help you. And anytime they don't, and I don't, you call them all out because it's their time.
Dot. I'm getting fired up. That's why I'm so excited about this conversation. Now it's time to go. This is front and center in our community right now. I fought against building the mental health jail. I lost in court. We're building it. Okay. What do they say? When you get lemons, you make lemonade.
That's right.
So when we build that, we'll now empty out the facilities we have near Norman Francis. We now have an opportunity to use those buildings. They're there. Renovation instead of, brand new build. We could build something. There are other sheriffs around the country who are building facilities that are public facing. You don't have to go to jail to get in them. Or if you do get into jail because of these, we now, if you can get in these facilities, we can get you stabilized, get you back to your family. You have an opportunity for those charges to get dropped and to live a good life. Can we do this, Doc? Is this possible? And what do we do? How do we get this done?
We can get it done. And the way that we have to do it is we have to start with the platform at the base of it. You mentioned we built something that you weren't necessarily in favor of, right? But when they built that, they built a solid foundation, and they're going to build it all the way up based on the foundation. That foundation's got to be right. In New Orleans, we know if we don't put pilings down, the house is going to be broken. So if we half-ass build the mental health support in these types of facilities, then the outcome is going to be half-assed when you hit back to street. So just like with the regular with the brick and mortar building, we have to build this platform so that every person is able to get what they need for their mental health at that particular spot, meet them where they are, and then build them up to push them out into this community. And by doing that, that means it's not just psychiatrists. It's got to be masters of clinical social work. It's got to be people that can deal with finances. It's got to be people that can deal with education. It's got to be a full wraparound approach. And that's what we did in medicine. And it's not because of the resources, it's not working as well as we would like, but that whole medical home, you have to have a place where everyone is on deck. And then you get triaged to where you are in most need. So you come into this facility and you are on heroin. Okay. We're not sending you to the licensed clinical social worker for therapy at that point. We have to get you detoxed. We get you detoxed. And then, which is a very difficult thing to do, which I'm sure you know. So then we say, okay, well, you got in here. How'd this happen? Well, I was in a gang. Okay. So now we got to deprogram you from being radicalized in a gang. That's one thing. Then you say, okay, well, I'm better now. I don't feel like I got to be a part of these types of things. Yeah, but I got anger issues. Okay, why? Well, my mama used to get beat by my dad, and I think that's the way it is. Okay, now we got domestic violence education. All these types of things. It's got to be on the plate. And once everything is on the plate, then the person that's in charge of this will pick what part of the vegetable or the meat or the rice that you're going to eat for that day. And then once your plate is full, then we can put you back out because you're nourished. You see, but that takes money. It takes money, it takes support, and it also takes a vision. It takes a vision for what you want to see. And you could say you want a beautiful house, just like right now. They had some architect put a vision together for that and got a budget. And usually they go over budget, but not by much, okay? But they got the budget, they got the vision. If I have a vision on what I want to be pushing out in the streets from this jail here, then I got to have a budget that's going to give me my vision and the outcome. And that's it. And if you try to do it any other way, it's not going to work. Just like if you try to build that building next door and you don't have the right budget, it's going to fall. It's got to be done the same.
Well, and what you said is just like so right. We will put the money into building another prison when we need mental health. Nobody's done that in 20 years since it's been decimated. Do you think we can put together a coalition in this community to help kind of drive this train forward? Do you think that's possible?
I think it's possible. I think that we have to talk to the governor.
Yeah.
I think we got to talk to the mayor. We got to talk to the new mayor that's coming.
Yes.
We've got to put the pieces together so that no one feels, that they are, overwrought or overstretched.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do a lot of emceeing, right, of things, right? And a lot of these where people give like 501c3 organizations, charitable organizations. And I say, look, all the money from this is going to go to help poor children. Now, you can give this money, or when he breaks into your house, I don't want to hear nothing. Because you have to invest at the beginning. Right. You can't want something on the end and don't invest in the beginning in the exact same proportion. Yes. You see what I'm saying? Yes. So that's where the lobby is gonna have to be. Yes. And I'm a fighter, so I got boots on the ground fighting. I've always been a fighter here, and I always will be. So, you can't let people walk away. You can't let people turn away. You got to say either this is the deal, or we're not gonna vote for you. You know what I'm saying? It just is what it is. Or we're going to push so you don't get that appointment. Or you're not going to get that contract for doing this if you don't do this. And we don't have a lot of Fortune 500 companies here, but we got a lot of companies making a lot of money that can donate a lot of money for this. This is everything in the world now is a public-private partnership.
Yes.
Let's do it that way. You know what I mean? Because you're not going to get the Googles and the Apple coming here when the crime is so high. They don't want to come here.
But the problem is we're talking about doing this on the back end. We're talking about investing after the investment should have been made in the city. Of course, the mental health system has been decimated, as you say. How do we start from this end to make what we need in the community available to all?
Okay, so we have one thing you don't have to do is reinvent the wheel. Okay, there are programs like this all around the country that do reentry, right? And you guys do a great job of reentry. What we have to do is to figure out, lay out the vision and say, if I had a magic wand, what would I have? And you know what you're about to say, you ain't gonna have. Okay. But you can't come too far away from that, or you don't have the real vision coming together, right? So we mentioned, the counseling. We got to have therapy. We got to have education. We got to have mental health. We got to have psychiatry. You got to have medicine. You got to have all these things, and you got to house it. And you got to house it in a way that the services can be given without stigma. Yeah. People hate, I don't want to be on any medicine. Okay, well, you on your high blood pressure medicine? Yeah. Okay, you on your medicine for, you got your insulin? Yeah. But I don't want no medicine for my mental health. Well, that's the biggest organ you got. That's the most important organ you got. So you have to be on medication for that. If you don't want to be on any medicine, don't be on none of it. That's okay. But you can't say, that's my whole thing about COVID shots. And don't even get me started on that, all right? But it's like, okay, I don't want to take the COVID vaccine, but if I get COVID, I want all the medicine to fix me. Well, who licensed the medicine for the COVID medicine? Who licensed that? The FDA. Well, who licensed the vaccine? The FDA. Oh, so you think they're schizophrenic on things that they do? They license some things they like and that are not good. No, you can't. That's living in a non-congruent way. And that's kind of my new thing for the last 3 years. If something's incongruent, it don't make sense. And you can try to make it make sense, but it's not. It's incongruent, right? So that concept is incongruent. So for us to say we're going to do something on the back end and spend the same amount of money that it would have cost to do on the front end, that's incongruent because you got to undo stuff. That's why we're talking about remodeling the house. You can't spend the same amount of money because you got to remodel the whole house. Costs money. Things pop up. You got to deal with it immediately. That's what this is. This is remodeling a brain. This is remodeling a mindset. This is remodeling a community. And if you're going to do that, you got to do it right with the right vision. And we have the programs. It's just putting the programs and implementing them with the right amount of support, and not just financial, but the city has to support this.
That's right.
People have to support it. Stakeholders have to support it. And when people come to facilities like this, they ever but the grace of God go. I grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and it was a bunch of, I had a lot of crazy stuff going on in my family. You know what I'm saying? And I was surrounded by that kind of stuff. But something was a secret sauce in my brain to say I want to do this differently. And we got to find that secret sauce. And what I found with this sauce is the fact that you give somebody the opportunity. If you give them an opportunity, I am no Muslim, right? And people think I'm a Nation of Islam because I wear bow ties. That's not the case. The long tie just used to get too dirty. The Muslims would say, if you give somebody dirty water, they will drink it. They will drink it because they don't want to die. But if you give them clean water next to it, they'll never choose the dirty water.
That's right.
Because they know that the clean water is better. So you have to give people clean water. If not, they'll drink the dirty water all day. And that's our responsibility, to give people clean water.
And opportunities. You said some things that we're trying to bring here. We have Metropolitan Human Services District who could be an anchor. But in other cities, they like Tucson, Albuquerque, they have centers where you've got some diversion centers, you've got some public facing, something that has to do with corrections as well. So we can make it into something with experts helping to drive that train, and then tools that help them. So one of the things we're trying to do here in the jail is we talked about medically assisted detox. Sometimes we see the trauma, mental health, and addiction all in one. So a lot of times the self-medication, either with weed or with something else, and we're trying to do the medically assisted detox and get them to something else. And what we see is that these shots, these 30-day shots, could be something good for us. When they're getting ready to leave, we get you 30 days at least of sobriety. It gives you a start when you get out there, because we know when you get out, you're more likely to overdose because your tolerance is lower. But the same thing for mental health meds. They've got those meds you can take once a month.
That's right.
So we're looking to really partner with experts. I just hear these things and I'm intrigued, right?
Yeah.
They sound like great solutions, but we know that if we have experts to help us develop this plan that we need and look at our vision for overall mental health, especially with the kids. All the people who were kids during Katrina are now of age and doing things.
That's right.
And they went through a pandemic too, right? And so all those things have just, just caused it to be even worse for a lot of them. So I think if we can come with really think about what we need to do and tools that we can use, that even somebody like me can use to help, I really think we can do something here.
Absolutely. And one word I hate more than anything else is the word resilience. You know why? Because I'm sick of being it. I'm sick of having to be resilient. Having to be resilient means that you had some problems that you had to overcome, right? So I love the fact that we are, but I'm sick of the fact that we have to be so much. So why don't we think about resilience, but say, let's go on the front end where we don't have to be resilient. We are demonstrative at the beginning so that our resilience can go down. Our resilience factor is very, 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 very
We
high.
can one day be carefree, maybe.
Yeah, it's like, it's like any kind of relationship, man. You put in your emotional bank account. So if you mess up, as long as you got 100,000 in your emotional bank account with your spouse, then you might go down to 90. That's okay, but you got enough to cover it.
Right.
In New Orleans, we are overdrawn.
We're overdrawn on
we
resilience.
we are going to the ATM and it's spitting at us no money. So we have to try to build this back up, and the only way we can do it is infrastructure. I'm a big infrastructure person, but also the infrastructure of our citizens' minds, and we can do this if we do it together. And I think, the NOPD, sheriff's department, these things should be can work hand in hand a little bit, so that every person that has to be subjected to a incarceration, this can be something that is a learning so that you do not ever have to come back and be a part of this.
Yep.
And we can do it. We can do it.
And the vision's there.
The vision's there, but we need some visionaries to help lead.
I got this. I got this. I'm telling you, we can do this, man. And all I want to do is at the end of the day, at the end, they say your dash. I was born in 1969. My dash is in the middle. I don't know when I'm gonna die, but I want that dash to mean something. And that dash means, what did I do between those 2 years? And what I did between those 2 years is to try to make this community a better place. And if I'm walking down the street and I don't feel like I gotta reach for my wallet because I feel like somebody stole it, or if I'm walking down the French Quarter and I don't feel like there's a marauding group of teenagers on motorcycles and ATVs, or somebody stealing from the coffers in an executive capacity or whatever it is, then I feel like my dash is good. Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to do. So and this has been recorded, right?
Yes.
In front of recording, I will help you as much as you need to make sure that this community is better.
Thank you, Doc. I think we start convening, start having some conversations. What does it look like? What are all our needs? There's a lot of needs out there. The school system, businesses, right?
That's right.
We need a workforce out there. So the workforce is struggling as well.
It's all struggling. That's why we're so resilient.
Yeah.
Because we have to do so much to cover other people. But we have enough people in the city that if everybody pulled together and as best as we can, now we know, and I just want to make this a caveat as well. We know in our lifetime that this thing ain't flipping all the way over, right? I mean, I would hope that it would be, but we know that's not happening. But what we do know is we can get damn close to making it to where we need it to be. And that's our job.
Man, if we can help families, I think we're going to be all right. I've been in that situation where I needed help with a loved one.
Absolutely.
We can help families. That could be a game changer.
And as we're closing, what would we want our listeners to know about just generally the connection between mental health and public safety?
Yeah, mental and emotional health. Emotional health is, that's a big issue. You may not have a diagnosis, but you got something going on with you right there. Understand that it is the driver of everything. Our school population, kids disappeared out of the schools. People coming into the jail disappearing. My brother disappeared at one point. We didn't know where he was. That happens with a lot of folks that we encounter in our jail, end up here. Their families don't know where they're at. So we really have to. This touches everybody. I think that's the most important thing.
I agree. And whenever you think that your brain is divorcing mental health and physical health and emotional health, then you're lost because all those things are working together. And I'll go even so far as something so simple as you got a lady who is she's in the workforce. She got her husband at home, and they have 2 kids, and she's suffering from anxiety. And then she's home by herself because her husband is on a business trip this week. And then she hears somebody break into the house, and she's anxious. She pulls out her gun that her husband got her, and she kills him. But it was her husband trying to get back in because she's so anxious, she commits a crime because of her anxiety from something totally different. People now the murders are happening because when you're walking on that edge of, I don't know what's going to happen to me, mental health, that's where crimes happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I have been victim of that where I'm about to go out on the edge and somebody's like, you never know what's cooking in somebody else's pot that day. So the mental health of our entire society, our entire city is so important, and totally the incarceration system is a feeder from the entire community's mental health. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, and then also
Sad.
being incarcerated is another trauma layered on top of that.
That's right.
That's right. And that's what our community's dealing with. So thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us and advocating with Sheriff
From
on
my
this
heart to
mental health
yours.
initiative.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. We go way back.
Yes.
We going forward too, so we got it.
And we invite our listeners to also join us on this advocacy journey to making sure that our community is getting the right resources to address mental health from the ground up, not from the end of the cycle. And we thank you all for listening. And for more information on how you can be a part of our work, join us on opso.gov to learn more about what's going on here at OPSO.